she's the key piece, really. She is the one that they all look to and expect to help them turn it around. But I know that she texted them all or talked with them individually and really explained to them what she needed and what the team needed for each individual in their role to make this one unit. Like, she was really the instigator of all that, of coming together. And, the thing about Asia is I think she's finally now starting to get the praise and some of the respect that she deserves. But it's really, think about how long it's taken for her to get this. And she's been a phenomenal player since she came out of college. But I'm with you, I don't think enough people, and I think part of it is it's because of how Asia and who she is. She's so humble. She's so under the radar. She's so team first. And I think that she's not one of those that needs the attention all the time and puts herself
Hi, everyone.
out.
Tim Kitzer with you, the voice of NBA Jam. From top journalists and authors to rising influencers and insiders, Hoopsology brings you the voices driving basketball forward. With elite guests and sharp analysis, Matt, Justin, and Alan keep you plugged into everything hoops. From downtown, boom shakalaka.
And to discuss the Las Vegas Aces, I mean, I'll be up front. Just watching last season, I pretty much writ them off in terms of they're winning the title, and all of a sudden, they have a huge run in the WNBA playoffs, and they pretty much destroyed the Phoenix Mercury in 4 games. Can you just walk us through just the Aces season in terms of kind of that turmoil, a lot of questions, and all of a sudden they turn around and they end up being the champions of the WNBA again?
I completely understand why you and a lot of others had written them off. It was an interesting start to the season. Coming off of that first unrivaled season, a lot of the players were coming off of playing some 3x3 ball to getting back into the rhythm of 5-on-5 full court. I think there were several things. The Aces were not healthy to start. And there were some really key pieces, role player, glue type players that were no longer with the team. And so even though they had some new pieces, Liz Kitley was not completely healthy, and they were relying on her getting back after her rehab. Just so many factors. You don't realize, how much certain players mean to you until maybe they're gone, or just that bond that they have to bring the team together. And there were a lot of those players that they were no longer, being able to look to. So I think a mixture of things, but the team behind the scenes knew we're seeing progress. We're getting better. They were sticking together, thankfully, in the locker room. And it's because of that. And the point of that really, really tough loss to Minnesota, when Asia finally said, okay, we got to turn this around. We got to flip the switch. And she reached out to each player. She reached out to the coaches, and the team agreed, we're going to scout ourselves. We're going to break all of our teams down that we're facing. We're going to let you see what we think we should be doing. And luckily for them, Becky Hammon, a very open-minded coach with that concept, said, all right, let's try it. And so there's a lot of different pieces, I think, that really made the difference. But they luckily had kept their heads above water just enough. It was getting close and borderline for sure. But the switch came on at the right time for certain. And then once they started to click, it was just almost impossible to stop them.
Can you speak to a team that you were saying goes through a lot of injuries and then they're able to pull it together? Because a lot of teams, they usually fall apart. So what separates the Aces in overcoming that adversity, and particularly with Becky Hammon's leadership as well, in terms of, having that experience through her playing days and her coaching to go through this adversity and to focus on the main goal, which is the playoffs, not necessarily the regular season, keeping the eyes on the end goal, which is a championship?
I think Coach Hammon had a major evolution of her coaching as well, because in looking at the previous season and really the seasons before, she didn't always, not that she didn't trust and love her bench, but she didn't always tend to go as deep into her bench as she did last season. And the movement that the whole administration decided we're going to bring some players in, Melissa Smith, really key piece. And when they were able to get her, it took her some time. New system. She's still a young player, but wow, did they find the all-star in her. I mean, just her best play ever. And the combination of her along with Asia Wilson, they unfortunately had to make some changes. That meant, again, Liz Kitley was not quite there. The season before, Kia Stokes was not healthy. Chelsea Gray was not healthy. They had several players that had gone out with injuries. And so they came in fresh and looking good. So I think the expectations obviously were very high, but there was a lot of change. There was a lot that had happened. And I don't think people really understood how much change. But for Becky Hammon to go to her bench and look to them deeper, that also helped them then down the road, because then they had players that she could look to. And they were, when they did have an injury or two or somebody needed a rest, she had players that she believed in and had proven, hey, I can go in and I'm not just going to go in to give somebody a breather. I can go in and be productive. And so I give her a lot of credit for that. I really do.
So, what was their temperament during their playoff run? Can you kind of describe this through like each series? Just kind of generalize what kind of their journey was to going to the WNBA finals, just in terms of finding their groove, finding their rhythm, any kind of hurdles that you experienced, any kind of like inside stories that you can share in terms of kind of their journey through the WNBA playoffs.
Yeah. I think going into it, they really felt that a lot of people were looking past them. And I think they used that in a lot of ways for motivation. And when they got the train going and they went on that major win streak at the end, that confidence was really tough to stifle. I mean, this team absolutely believed we're going to win this. And they talked about, and it's funny, Carolyn and Peck and I do, their games locally. And she and I had talked about early on at All-Star break, let's say it was about All-Star break time when things finally kind of started to flip around, that this was going to be one of the greatest stories ever told in the WNBA of how they flipped it completely around. And the players were definitely feeling that and talking about, we're going to prove this to everyone. And so they were absolutely feeling confident. I think they had felt that they were maybe, I don't know if you want to say disrespected, but that people definitely were looking past them, and that a lot of people were maybe cheering and wanting a different champion and some other play. There's some amazing players on all of these teams, and maybe some that haven't won championships. And so I think a lot of the fans that are maybe for an underdog or want others to win, I think you have those fans that you're fighting against as well. So they had some swagger to them by the end, but their connection, communication, just one thing too, that Chelsea Gray came in after Unrivaled being such a scorer, which she's also doing right now, but knowing when she needed to score and really going back to being that point guard, to know I need to be the assist point guard, and then I know when to score and when they need me to dish it. But her communication with the new players, along with obviously Asia's play, those were such key pieces to their attitude going in.
I think that was evident just through their dominance of the Mercury and getting that sweep. Can you talk about Asia Wilson, just in terms of, her impact? And I feel like she's one of the most, I think her and Jokic are like, it's bizarre because I feel they're at the top of their field, but yet they're the most disrespected. You don't usually see that in other sports, but yeah, what she was able to do was just amazing this past season. Can you just talk about her journey as well in terms of not being a leader, but also maintaining her high level of play as well?
Yeah, she's the key piece, really. She is the one that they all look to and expect to help them turn it around. But I know that she texted them all or talked with them individually and really explained to them what she needed and what the team needed for each individual in their role to make this one unit. Like, she was really the instigator of all that, of coming together. And, the thing about Asia is I think she's finally now starting to get the praise and some of the respect that she deserves. But it's really, think about how long it's taken for her to get this. And she's been a phenomenal player since she came out of college. But I'm with you that I don't think enough people, and I think part of it is it's because of how Asia and who she is. She's so humble. She's so under the radar. She's so team first. And I think that she's not one of those that needs the attention all the time and puts herself out there. You're starting to see her now with Nike, with all that she's doing in the public eye, just her shoe and the public appearances and the awards. She's so humble and she's such a wonderful human. And her boyfriend Bam has been around a lot, and the support that they have and the respect that they have for one another, that's really special as well. And I think that that's really given her some extra superpower strength. Not that she needed any, but I think It's just really been incredible to watch her evolution and watch her growth. I will say she came in. I thought she was in an amazing shape the season before last. Last season, she was lean down and stronger than I'd ever. She worked out in the off season. She was down in Miami with him. It was incredible to see that she could even take it to another level. She's truly right where she needs to be.
Are people not aware of fans in terms of Asia Wilson, either as a player, as a person, that should be highlighted more? You mentioned her humility. Is there anything else that like you see just in terms of calling her games that should be highlighted more? It might be just something subtle or could be something that's a big part of her personality that's not really brought up.
But it is funny. I say that, she's kind of quiet and doesn't like to draw the attention, but there is this kind of girly, funny swagger to her at times. She's starting to take the praise better than she used to. I think she's accepting it and understanding that, yeah, I've been working my tail off. It's okay. I can take a compliment. I should. And I should enjoy it. I think she's not always allowed herself to enjoy the rewards and the accomplishments. There's always something she felt like she needed to keep doing and doing better. And I think this year in particular, she really put a focus on, I'm going to appreciate and enjoy every single accomplishment that I received, that the team receives. She really embraced so much more than she usually did, but she has this funny little girl side to her sometimes that comes out. She is one of the funniest ones. She'll get to giggling in practice sometimes and has to turn away because she doesn't want to get in trouble. And she's got this tough, amazing superwoman ability, and then she's also just this silly young female that just loves this game and loves having fun with her teammates and her coach. And it's fun to see her kind of bounce in and out of that.
You mentioned the fans that, they're not fans of the Aces, maybe wanting a different champion. What about the vibe of the fans within Vegas themselves of this title run? What was that like in terms of just the fan culture within the Aces?
They are crazy, amazing fans. They really are. Overall, with the Aces, with the Golden Knights, I mean, if there's a team in town, they are behind them. And there were a lot of question marks when it was being talked about bringing teams to Vegas. Would they care? Would they not? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people that come into town and they want to see it and be a part of it. But the local fans have been incredible, and they were at this parade. I came in to go to the parade, and I had been to the previous parade, and they've all been wonderful. But I had never seen this many people show up and stick around and bring their kids. And you could see the kids, and the dad or the mom would have jerseys on as well, and I'll tell you, you just kind of stood as a former player and just watched saying, I didn't know I'd see everybody wearing jerseys and wanting to follow these teams and these players like this. It was really, really special. And they are just fun, wonderful people that have just embraced it from all different demographics. That's what I really, really love about it.
What do you see in terms of the future of sports culture in Las Vegas? You mentioned the Golden Knights, you got the Raiders, the Athletics are coming. What is that going to be like when there's more teams? I know NBA's been rumored for years in terms of, them getting a team in Vegas. How do you think that's going to, change the ecosystem within the Aces? You think things will stay the same? Things will change? How would that work, you think?
It may be a little trickier for the fan bases, depending on the overlap of the seasons. Depending on how many fans are coming in from out of town to watch compared to the in-town fans. I think, it's kind of like maybe a market. It's not quite like a Los Angeles, though, where there are so many things and it's so spread out and so large. I do think from a travel and commuting situation, it's pretty easy to get around for the most part. That will be something they'll have to consider, though, because there are some juggernauts. When you have the F1 series in, there's a lot of suites blocked off. There's a lot going on. It's going to be interesting. The A's stadium, assuming that takes place where it's going to, is right by Mandalay Bay. I know the Aces are going to be playing at T-Mobile a little bit more as well, but that's just a little bit the other direction. I do think it could be an impact on these fans in deciding what they can go to, what they can't go to. But I also think there's a love for so many things, and some of the fans maybe don't cross over into all the different sports, but I will say that the sports I've watched that have been in Las Vegas, fans have found them and they've been there, and it's been pretty incredible.
So what surprised me is that the WNBA, they're in the middle of this, CBA negotiations, but yet the schedule is out for all the teams. That took me by surprise. With the Aces in particularly, they have the season opener, I believe, against the Phoenix Mercury. Do you have any other games that you're looking forward to, despite it being really early and really we have a conclusion in terms of these CBA negotiations? But the schedule's out. Have you take a look at that? Are you looking forward to any kind of matchups ahead?
Yeah, well, I think it's awesome to see Phoenix right off the bat from the get go, after facing them in the finals. That's and then there's a really difficult road trip. There's I think four straight potentially on the road, if I recall. So it's not going to be an easy start. It's going to be interesting to see the new teams. To see Toronto, to see Portland. I'm excited about those. I'm excited to see the player movement, to see who's playing where. I feel optimistic in seeing the schedules. That makes me have hope that, okay, they're putting some things in place, right? So we'll see what else we can put in place here. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the new matchups. I really hope teams have gotten healthy. I know Indiana had so many injuries last year. I'm anxious to see their team hopefully healthy, and what another year of experience. I mean, they were to do what they did, to be so shorthanded. If they're healthy, they can be a scary team next year as well. So always matching up with them has been kind of fun to see.
So, what was your opinion of last season overall in terms of the league, the W as a whole? I think the season prior really huge in terms of eyeballs, but it seemed like the league continued that momentum despite the injuries that you're mentioning. What was kind of your vibe overall of the W, as in terms of other teams, just fan interest, any other observations?
I really thought that the fans were some of the best I've seen across. Carol and I get to travel to all the different locations. There were very few venues where we said, wow, there's nobody here. We didn't say that anywhere. The fans really did come out. And like you said, we were at Indiana a couple of times. To have had so many injuries to key players that you might want to see, didn't matter. I mean, there were lines of people trying to buy jerseys and gear. There were seats. There were people in their seats. It was really impressive to see fans come out consistently. I don't know how they do it, Justin, but the fans just amaze me. They really do. They're behind it. They're into it. They're just fun. I love watching the interactions on social media as well. And you see people talking about it and sending word around, and I don't know, between the fans and the mascots, I think it's growing in a good direction. That's where I think, the negotiations right now are disappointing to continue to prolong. You don't want the fans to get discouraged. You want them to stay up and stay positive. So I think that, that's, if there's anything, it's disappointing, but I get it. I understand. You want them to get paid the way they need to be paid. There's just got to be that balance. Just try to see two sides to it and know that I really believe they can come to a negotiation, and then it's going to help them even for the next contracts down the road too.
So you mentioned the expansion teams. How do you think that's going to work if these negotiations prolong? And if we didn't have an expansion draft,
Yeah.
the regular draft, I just think they're at a massive disadvantage despite the interest. How do you think that's going to play out?
I do. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think because they haven't even designated the free agents at this point, right? So they're not certain about them, and then they don't have the expansion, and then obviously you have to wait for potential rookies, but they're probably at a bit of a disadvantage. I think the plus for them is that, as I see the Golden State team, coming in, and there is so much talent out there. There's talent that isn't just starting for every team. There are players that could be starters, but they're accepting roles coming off the bench who can now go to an expansion team and potentially be a starter for them. And so I think the plus for them is that once they can get their team, I don't know time frame, how much time they're going to have as far as gel and chemistry and that sort of thing. But I do think the talent pool's deep, and that's a big plus for them considering they might be a little bit behind.
So I want to ask you about the overall environment of women's basketball. You mentioned Unrivaled. There's Project B. There's Athletes Unlimited that's kicking off their season, I think either now or it's about to happen. What do you think in terms of this ecosystem? Because I think compared to the men's game, a lot of the more powerful leagues are in Europe compared to the women's game. There's a healthy ecosystem in terms of interest within the women's games of different leagues that are just starting out or have been around for a couple of years. What's your overall feeling in terms of these other leagues? Is that healthy for the game, you think? And what do you think in terms of kind of this Project B? We know a little about it. I'm just curious, have you heard anything about in terms of players' interests? What are kind of your overall thoughts
Yeah.
of these alternative leagues?
I've read a little bit. I don't know a ton about the Project B at this point, as much as I, with the others that have come in. But I do think it's an opportunity to maybe not go overseas for some players. I think going overseas and playing is an incredible experience for certain players. But I think when you start to get to a certain age and physically your body, you say, okay, how do I not put so much wear and tear on it, but stay in incredible shape, train, work the way I need to? I think that these other leagues are an opportunity. What I think the teams and the players would love to see as well would be some sort of a G League on the women's side, if they could, to expand rosters or have players that are at least training and working within maybe a team's organization or system. And by doing that, then when there is an injury potentially, you could bring a player in that at least they're training, what they're working on. I think that would be maybe the long-term goal from what I've heard. But I do think that for the most part, they love the opportunity to showcase what they can do, maybe in shorter amounts of time, but mostly here in the United States, to be able to stay home, especially if they have children or families, and not have to go overseas if physically it's a lot of wear and tear.
Do you see the WNBA working with these leagues? Do you think that is a positive direction that the W should go in terms of having more synergy with an Unrivaled or Athletes Unlimited? And I think we've seen that with the WNBA and Athletes Unlimited. I've seen their alerts pop up in terms of it.
Yes.
Watch the games on their app if I'm.
Yeah.
So I think there is that synergy there. But do you think does everybody working in the same ecosystem that's kind of will grow the women's game moving forward? You think?
I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen a connection with Unrivaled. Honestly, I was a little surprised that it didn't work out. That they did not come to an agreement of trying to cross promote for each other. So I do think that that's disappointing to an extent. But they are two different games, so there is that. But you do have a lot of the players, obviously, that are from these teams, and so I do think that Athletes Unlimited. I think it's a great showcase. There's been some players that have come from that had incredible play in Athletes Unlimited that got a chance in the WNBA, then that next season. So I think, if you can, maybe you didn't make a roster for the WNBA, but you've got a chance to maybe show what you can really do. And I think it's been a really big plus for a lot of players who, there's only so many spots, right? And so you didn't maybe make a roster, but now you can show yourself a little more, get some experience. I mean, Kirsten Bell is a prime example of that, really, for the Aces. I mean, she's played incredibly well in Athletes Unlimited, and that's a big reason why she's come in, and the team, she has a confidence about her. It's getting better. And that's why the team wanted her to become a starter. That's another factor that kind of changed things as Jewel Lloyd said, hey, I'll come off the bench. Let's see if we can change it up too. I can't stop telling you how many different things really affected last year's championship for this team.
Circling back to that team, I want to talk about Becky Hammon. And, she's won a ton of championships, very successful. What do you think her future is in the women's game? Because I always think when there's a coaching vacancy coming up in the NBA, where's the interview for Becky Hammon? Where's that phone call? Where's her interview? I just think it's pretty obvious her pedigree as a player under Popovich, her WNBA resume. It's pretty obvious that she can coach any team she wants, and yet there's I don't know. I just find it peculiar. I keep saying this in all the other interviews that she is not on that top of the list.
Yeah.
Where do you think her future is in terms of coaching overall? Do you think it remains as with the Aces in terms of creating kind of like a long-running dynasty, or do you think she has other ambitions?
In talking with Becky some, I do think she's really happy where she is. I think she enjoys this team. I think she's enjoying watching the growth and being able to put different pieces together. Nikki Fargas, the team president, she worked so well with her, who also worked kind of on the GM side this year for the team. They really got along well. And Mark, obviously, she thinks so highly of him and the fans. I think she knows she's in a good spot. And this is a team with an Asia Wilson that you could, and the Chelsea Grays and the Jewel, she could take this team very far. It's not to say never. I'm not going to say that she would never take an NBA job, but she also has two young boys. And I think she also sees that she can have a little more time with her kids with this schedule than an NBA schedule. But the NBA is the NBA. And I know she enjoyed the NBA so much. And so I'm not going to say that she'll never do it, but I do think that right now she's really content and happy with where she is. But, all these things can change. And I think as long as Asia Wilson and this core group's around, I think she'll stick around.
Once the season kicks off for the W, are there anything in terms of different aspects of next season that you're looking forward to, whether that's a new rookie class, again, the expansion teams, anything else that's falling under the radar that you think that's going to be a major storyline when the season does eventually kick off?
Yeah, I think it's incredible. It's the 30th season, 30 years,
Wow.
And Justin, I started working in the league in day one of this league. And every year I can remember, people saying, how long do you think it's going to last? How long do you think it's going to last? And I just remembered always thinking, I don't know, but I just hope it does, because I want it to grow. I want there to be opportunities for young women to play. And we're talking 30 years now. And and I look at it now and it just never ceases to amaze me. But I think this rookie class will be interesting. I actually do. It's going to be fun. It's going to be talented. We're finally kind of, we'll see what direction the teams want to go. Obviously, do they want to go with a big? Because there's some really good bigs out there, like a Lauren Betts, maybe. But AZ Fudd's having an incredible. AZ Fudd is in the best condition and shape I've ever seen her in. I mean, she's just incredibly healthy this year, which is so wonderful to see. But there's a lot of talent in this group, so it's going to be a fun class. That again, plus the expansion teams, the excitement behind that. Probably hearing and seeing, assuming they're going to continue to try to expand and add some more teams and maybe even some things up. Who's another city? Where's another place that's going to come into action and play? So I think that's something that will be told at some point, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing where they're looking to try to grow things with the league.
A city that you think should have a WNBA team? What do you think is kind of left on the board? I mean, I'm selfish. I live in Denver, so anything in the Denver region, I'm of course going to be for. But what do you think is kind of the best for the league in terms of expansion?
Yeah, I mean, Denver's an incredible market. It's really become such a big sports city and region. I think that would be amazing. It does seem that they are going toward cities that have NBA teams as well, because Portland had already had a team, and then now new ownership group. Toronto had never had a team, but they really did some work to show, hey, we've got fans that want to be here. They did some preliminary games. I've heard some word out there that Houston might be a team that's in the running, and goodness, they were just an incredible team and program. So that would be interesting to see if they were able to get a team back and how much interest there would be. I am going to tell you that, for such a long time working with the Sacramento organization, I would love to see those Monarchs fans who are still diehards and who are now, going to other places and the Bay Area having a team. They may not be one that gets one, but I'll tell you, they were one of the most fun fan bases out there too. And so it'd be fun for them. I would love that for them, but I haven't been hearing much about that. So my guess might be that Houston could be a front runner for another team.
I make my co-hosts happy. They love Houston basketball, so that'd be right up their alley. And with Sacramento, I mean, one of the most underrated fan bases in all of the NBA.
Yeah.
So I think if they were to get a WNBA team to get the Monarchs back, I think I think they would support it 100%. So
yeah, I'm with you. It'd be fun.
Yeah. Krista, thank you very much for joining me again. Truly appreciate it. Can you let our fans know where you can find you on social media, where they can find your work, anything else you're up to as well?
Yeah. Instagram, I'm at Blunkster. You can find me there. Facebook, I think it's at Krista Blunk, or Twitter, that sort of thing, X. Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find. I didn't do anything too crazy. But yeah, I am right now. I'm covering college basketball. We're getting ready. It's all getting ready to really churn up,
Yeah.
moving into the second half of play. And then, believe it or not, softball is already coming out with their schedule. So things are overlapping a little bit. But I'm really looking forward to seeing. There's so much parity out there right now. Conferences are truly just kind of beating up on one another's. Conference tournaments are going to be very interesting. I think, sadly, for some teams, there's going to be upsets in the conference tournaments, which means it's going to bump some bubble teams out because there's going to be multiple teams that are going to make it in all across the board. But I think it's going to be an exciting season of tournament play, and then NCAA tournament's going to be a blast. So looking forward to that.
It's always fun with March Madness, and never fails. This time of year. Krista, thank you very much for joining me. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Justin, thanks so much.